Apyayantum mangani pakpranasyakshu shrotramato balamindriyani cha sarvani sarvam brahmopanishadam maham brahma nirakuryam mama brahma nirakarut anirakaranamastu anirakaranam me astu tadatmani nirateya upanishatsu dharmaste mai santu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The peace mantra from the Samaveda. May quietness descend upon my limbs, my speech, my breath, my eyes, my ears. May all my senses wax clear and strong. May Brahman show himself unto me. May I never deny Brahman, nor Brahman me. I with him and he with me. May we abide always together. May there be revealed to me who am devoted to Brahman, the holy truth of the Upanishads. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto all. Friends, as you know, we are observing Swami Vivekananda's 150th anniversary all the year round, inviting various Swamis and speakers to pay tribute to Swamiji. So we are very happy that Swami Yuktatmananda, the head of the Ramakrishna Vivekananda Center in New York, will speak today on Vivekananda's Vivekananda on the essence of religion. Swami joined the Ramakrishna order in 1978 and then he was in Mysore, in Coimbatore, in Belur Math for 2 years in the training center. Then he was the editor of the Prabuddha Bharata, Mayavati Himalayas, for 3 years, from 2002 to 5, 2002 to 4. So he came to America and he was in St. Petersburg. We just opened a new center, he became the head. He was there for a year and a half. Then in 2007, in December, he took charge of the Ramakrishna Vivekananda Center in New York when Swami Adi Sharanandaji passed away. Since then, he is the head of that center. And I am very happy. This is the first time he came. I asked him many times, but he was a busy person. And I am glad that he came. And he will speak on Vivekananda, on the essence of religion. Swami Yuktatmananda.
Om Asato ma Sadgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor ma Mrutangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us, peace be unto all. Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Tapaharine. Salutations to the sage Swami Vivekananda, the king among renouncers, the embodiment of existence, knowledge, bliss absolute, and who dispels all our miseries. Respected Swamiji and dear friends, I'm extremely happy to be here with you all, to be at the center. As Swami Chaitananand said, this is my first visit, and I'm enjoying every moment of my stay here. The subject for today's service is Vivekananda on the essence of religion. Sri Ramakrishna taught by his life that God realization is the goal of life. Mahatma Gandhi wrote in a foreword to a biography of Sri Ramakrishna, Life of Sri Ramakrishna, published by Advaita Ashram. Mahatma Gandhi writes, a study of Sri Ramakrishna's life enables one to see God face to face. None can study his life without being convinced that God alone is real and the world impermanent and illusory. So Sri Ramakrishna lived a life of God consciousness, God realization, and he followed not only the different pathways in Hinduism, but also Christianity and Islam, and found out by first-hand spiritual experience that all religions lead us to the same spiritual goal. There is no need to quarrel in the name of religion, but all that we need to do as followers of any religion is to be sincere in following the teachings, in practicing that religion, and be earnest to know the truth. Sincerity and earnestness, these two things Sri Ramakrishna placed before us as requirements for God realization. So this message of harmony of religions, that there is no need to fight in the name of religions, but what we need is to live religion. This was disseminated for the world at large by Swami Vivekananda when he came here in 1893. And he spoke at the Chicago Parliament of Religions, and thereafter he spoke at various places in this country and in England for 4 years, 1893 to 1897. And what he spoke then is a source book. It's a treasure house for every one of us, not only here, but also back in India. Especially what Swami Vivekananda said about religion is very important. If we don't study Swami Vivekananda, our idea about religion will not be complete, I would say, and will not have that life and character transforming quality in it when we get it from other sources. What did Swami Vivekananda teach? In his own words, he said, I have taught nothing but the Upanishads. Upanishads go by the term Vedanta, the end portion of the Vedas. So Swamiji didn't teach anything new from one point of view. He taught the Upanishads. But what was the difference? What was the difference in Swami Vivekananda's message? When we study his teachings, we understand the essence of religion. We understand the essentials of religion and also the non-essentials of religion. In other words, what is religion and what's not religion? We get a very clear idea when we study Swami Vivekananda. And he has presented all these in a way you and I can understand. Sister Nivedita, Swami Vivekananda's disciple, puts it beautifully in her introduction to the complete works of Swami Vivekananda. She said, the truth he preaches would have been as true had he never been born, Nay, more, they would have been equally authentic. The difference would have lain in their difficulty of access, in their want of modern clearness and incisiveness of statement, and in their loss of mutual coherence and unity. Had he not lived, texts that today will carry the bread of life to thousands might have remained the obscure disputes of scholars. He taught with authority and not as one of the pundits, for he himself had plunged to the depths of the realization which he preached, and he came back like Ramanuja, only to tell its secrets to the pariah, the outcast, and the foreigner. Now, what's important in this observance of Sister Nivedita is, even had Swamiji not been born, the truth he preached would have been as true and equally authentic, but the difference would have lain in their difficulty of access, in their want of modern clearness and incisiveness of statement. What does this mean? Modern clearness. Swamiji explained these abstract spiritual truths in a way, in modern terms, in a way that people now can understand, not only now, for all time. Why do we say all time? If you read even Sister Nivedita's English, separated from us by a distance of more than 100 years, you see it doesn't read that smoothly now. If you study her biography of Swamiji, the master as I saw him, it takes a while for us to get into the book because it's a little dated. The English is dated. But when you study Swami Vivekananda today, Vivekananda English, that's what Christopher Isherwood calls. What Swami Vivekananda spoke and wrote was Vivekananda English. You read it today, it reads so smooth, and that's the specialty. So it's true not only now, it's relevant not only now, but for all time. He makes things so clear. When we just study the Upanishads in the light of Sri Shankara's commentary, just study that without any support from Sri Ramakrishna's teachings or Swami Vivekananda's teachings, it's a little difficult to understand, even with the help of a commentary, what the Upanishads teach. Of course, there are some teachings in the Upanishads which don't need a commentary. We understand very clearly, thou art that. But even that needs some explanation. But when you study the Upanishads in the light of Swami Vivekananda's teachings, you begin to understand the contemporary relevance of the teachings contained in the Upanishads. We begin to understand that we too can translate into our own lives these sublime teachings. Let's hear from Swami Vivekananda himself, the task he had before himself, he set for himself. Swamiji says, to put the Hindu ideas into English, and then make out of dry philosophy and intricate mythology and queer, startling psychology a religion which shall be easy, simple, popular, and at the same time meet the requirements of the highest minds, is a task only those can understand who have attempted it. The dry, abstract Advaita must become living, poetic in everyday life. Out of hopelessly intricate mythology must come concrete forms, concrete moral forms, and out of bewildering yogism must come the most scientific and practical psychology. And all this must be put in a form so that a child may grasp it. That's my life's work. The Lord only knows how far I shall succeed. Putting all these in a way that even a child can understand it. And how admirably Swami Vivekananda succeeded in this task is evident to us when we study his complete works, his teachings. The clarity that we get from his teachings, especially on religion, is unparalleled. It's unique. So today, we'll reflect on some of Swami Vivekananda's thoughts on the essence of religion. And we get this from his lectures on Raja Yoga. And we have heard these sayings, you could call them Maha Mantras, only given in English, Mantras are usually in Sanskrit, but Swami Vivekananda's mantras are no less powerful in their transforming effect and in their inspirational quality. Swami Vivekananda said, each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within. Each soul, that means every one of us is potentially divine. What is meant by potentially divine? According to Vedanta, we are not just this body and mind. We are not what we think ourselves to be. We are not what we appear to be for others. But we are essentially divine. We are the spirit, we are the Atman. It's not that we are the body and within the body is the mind and within the mind is the Atman, like a precious jewel inside two jewel boxes, but we are the jewel. We are the Atman, and we are put on a mental body, and outside that we are put on a physical body, but unfortunately we don't know why. We've been thinking that we are the physical body and we are the mental body. So right now, when we are not aware that we are the Atman, that we are divine, the divinity is potential in us. It's latent in us. And to manifest this latent divinity is the goal of life. That's the goal of human life. Once again, what's meant by this potential? We understand that it is a state of, it's an unmanifested state. And when it manifests, we don't call it potential anymore. It has manifested. You ask a schoolboy or a schoolgirl what they're going to become when they grow up. Or in other words, what they're going to study for. Someone would say, I'm going to become a doctor. I'm going to become a dentist. I'm going to become a scientist. I'll be an engineer. And let's assume a child that says it's going to become a doctor becomes a doctor. Because these days, children are so very clear in their aspiration. So this child who was in high school, who wanted to become a doctor, has become a doctor now. Now, when it just had that aspiration of becoming a doctor, this medical knowledge was potential in the child. When it has now become a doctor, when it has gained a degree, that medical knowledge is manifested in the child. Of course, we can say there are different fields of medicine, different levels of specialization. There is no end to acquiring knowledge. All that is true. But compared to any other person, a non-doctor, this child has become a doctor now, and that medical education, which is potential in the child, has become manifest now. So potentiality is a state of ignorance, and manifestation is a state of knowledge. When we are ignorant about our divine nature, we say that this divinity is potential in us. And when we are aware that we are divine, when we gain the knowledge of our divinity, we call it fully manifest. And Swami Vivekananda says this manifestation is the goal of life. It's the goal of religion. And he continues. The goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, external and internal. So control of external nature and internal nature are both important. What's meant by control of external nature? That's what science does. That's what scientists do. Swami Vivekananda himself says, nature says, go and live in the forest. Man says, no, I'll build a house and live in it. Nature says, live in darkness. Man says, no, I will invent an incandescent lamp and live in broad daylight even during night. Now, of course, with a flick of a switch, lights just come on. But imagine those days when Thomas Alva Edison was struggling to find an element that would burn in a sustained way with the application of electricity. He and his assistants didn't care for their physical needs, sleep, food, or anything else. They spent hours together, days together in their lab. And when they first saw this filament which burned in a sustained way for about 18 hours or so, they just stood transfixed. Because Thomas Alva Edison didn't want to take no from the nature and struggled against nature and invented this tungsten filament and invented this incandescent lamp, we are able to just get light with a flick of a switch. So he struggled on behalf of entire humanity. This applies to a lamp, and so it applies to every other discovery or invention by any scientist. Not taking a no from nature, but struggling against nature, external nature, and nature gives out its secrets. That is conquering external nature. And what happens? Of course, some inventions are made, some discoveries are made, but what happens is the stuff inside people comes out. Now, conquest of internal nature. What is meant by internal nature? Every one of us has our own mindset. Every one of us faces identical situations in different ways. Some people are very calm when they encounter problems and they try to analyze what's before them and they try to do the best they can physically and mentally. Most people could be just completely swayed by what's happening, can be completely swept off their feet by problems before them, completely crestfallen. And there could be so many people in between these two extremes. Now, what accounts for this difference? The same problem, why people face them in different ways. It's because of our impressions, mental impressions. Every thought, every word, every thought and every deed of ours leaves an impression in the mind. In the mind, not in the brain. If it is left in the brain with the death of the body and with cremation, all our samskaras are burnt and we become knowers of Brahman. But it is lodged in the mind, not in the brain. So these samskaras, impressions, outlive the death of the body and influence what we are. Swami Vivekananda discusses this in detail in the very first lecture he gave on Karma Yoga. Karma in its effect on character. The gist of the teaching that Swami Vivekananda gives is every thought and every word, every thought and every deed, every action leaves an impression in our mind. And this impression goes on getting deepened with every repetition of the thought or the action. And we have good impressions, we have bad impressions, resulting from good thoughts, good deeds, bad thoughts, bad deeds. So every one of us is a bundle of good and bad impressions. And the sum total of these impressions, Swami Vivekananda defines as character. Our character is determined by this sum. You give a positive sign to good impressions, a negative sign to bad impressions, and take an algebraic sum of both. If the sum is positive, you have good character. If the sum is negative, you have bad character. And this sum total determines what we are at any given moment. And this sum total accounts for the differences, the different ways in which different people face identical situations, identical problems. And this sum total again constitutes what is called internal nature. So conquering external nature and internal nature. And this internal nature, why should we conquer this? That's because this internal nature, this sum total, which is responsible for what we are, is not always favorable to us. Before we go ahead, a little discussion on these samskaras, these impressions, will be in order. These impressions have 4 components. When we understand this, we'll be more careful about our thoughts, about our actions, which give rise to these impressions in the first place. First is the knowledge component. Suppose I have not eaten cheesecake. I ask one of you who has tasted cheesecake, how does cheesecake taste? You say it tastes sweet. How is the sweetness of cheesecake different from that of rasmalai or rasgulla, which I am familiar with, I have tasted? Now, what will be your answer? You don't have an answer. You will just say you need to eat the cheesecake to find out how its sweetness differs from that of any other sweet that you are familiar with. So when I eat a cheesecake for the first time, I gain the knowledge of how cheesecake tastes. And that is embedded in the impression that I've gathered. The second aspect of any impression that we gather is the tendency to repeat the action or thought that gave rise to this impression. I eat a piece of cheesecake for the first time. I gain an impression. So next time I see cheesecake, or next time I see someone eating cheesecake, my mouth starts watering because there is a tendency to repeat that action. So eat it a second time. The impression gets deepened a little. A third time, a fourth time, n number of times. The impression has become so deep now, I don't need to see a cheesecake anymore. Just cheesecake, the thought of cheesecake is enough to make my mouth water. The impression has become very deep now. So the tendency to repeat is the second characteristic of any impression. The third is memory of this action. Memory of having eaten the cheesecake. This memory itself is harmless. The memory could just come in our mental plane and then go. It's only the tendency to repeat it that's more important, and that's what holds people captive. So we saw three. First is knowledge, second is tendency to repeat, third is memory, the fourth is the fruit of that action, karma phala. What action gives rise to what kind of fruit? That's also embedded in the impression itself. As we sow, so we reap. The law of karma. God doesn't sit somewhere beyond the clouds and then decide, okay, let this person have this, he has done this, she has done this, so they'll have this fruit of their action. In Hinduism, you have the lord of the king of death, Yama. He has an assistant by name Chitragupta, and he has a big database of all people, their actions, their good actions, bad actions. And every religion has all this, what happens in the post-mortem existence. So when people die and go to Yama Dharmaraja, Yama asks this Chitragupta, so what has this person done? So he flips through his ledger and then says, this person has done this, done that. And then Yama says, all right, let him go to this place, or let him go to that place. Only in Hinduism, after living in that place for some time, they've got to come back. There is no eternal heaven, there is no eternal hell. But back to our discussion. There is no Chitragupta keeping a ledger of all our actions. For people who cannot receive higher ideas, better ideas, these ideas work. These ideas work as a goad for good actions, good thoughts, prompted by fear. Swami Vivekananda says, mostly we are moral because of that fear instinct. If we are immoral, we'll be punished. Fear of the law, fear of public ridicule. Anyway, here, there is no Yama meting out justice, nor is God as some kind of a tyrant waiting for us to die and meet him. He is not waiting to settle scores with us. He is not waiting to mete out justice. God is all love. He doesn't judge us as we judge other human beings. So what kind of fruit accrues from what kind of action is determined by the impressions we have gathered. And the sum total of these impressions is what is character. So control of internal nature means controlling these impressions. How do we control these impressions? Bad impressions, when they are sufficiently strong and deep, they influence our character. People do something bad despite knowing that doing that is bad. Duryodhana, the famous villain in the Mahabharata, there is a beautiful verse put into his mouth. It goes like this: Janami dharmam nachame pravrittihi. I know what is right, but I cannot practice it. Janami adharmam nachame nivrittihi. I know what's wrong, but I'm not able to give it up. All of us may not be as bad and as vicious as Duryodhana, but a little of Duryodhana's streak is in every one of us. We know what's right, we're not able to practice it, at least to our satisfaction. And we know what's wrong, we're not able to give it up. So controlling this is possible by taking care of our actions now. Good thoughts, good actions will result in more of good impressions. So that'll augment the stock of good impressions, that will strengthen our good character. That's the only way to escape from the hold of bad impressions. But then just having good character is alone not enough. Just being good can make us slaves of good impressions. If a bad person is bad in spite of himself, it's because of the power of bad impressions. And if a good person is good, he could be good to the point of, he can be good to a fault because of the power of his good impressions. There are some very good people who lack the strength to say no when there is a need to say no. So they are under the hold of good impressions. Swami Vivekananda says there is a higher ideal, the desire to be free. Desire to be free from both the hold of good impressions and bad impressions. And we do that by doing work as worship and offering the fruits of our work to God. When we do that, we don't gain any new impressions, and existing impressions also gradually get attenuated in our devotion to God. Of course, that's a different subject. When we go to that, we won't be able to continue with what we have taken up. So control of internal nature involves control of the mind, disciplining the senses. That is the fundamental teaching that our scriptures give us. There is no substitutes for disciplining the senses. That's what Sri Krishna says in the 3rd chapter of the Gita. Tasmat tvam indriyanyadav niyamya bharatarshabha papmanam prajahihyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. After a discourse on desire, the root of desire, the seat of desire, how devouring desire is, what a great enemy desire is, Sri Krishna says, therefore, discipline your sensory system at the beginning, at the outset. That is the preliminary discipline that Sri Krishna gives. That means we need to be careful about what we take in through our 5 senses: the ears, the skin, the eyes, the tongue, and the nose. And the most important of all, through the mind in the form of ideas. We need to consciously not gather more dirt through any of the sense organs and the mind. We try to clean a room, we try to vacuum the room, but someone else keeps on adding dirt from some other part of the room. The room will never get cleaned. So if you want purification of mind, we need to ensure that we do some kind of a quality control at the input level, at the level of the senses and at the level of the mind. And this needs struggle, because the mind is always oriented toward the senses. Senses are oriented toward their objects. And the mind is happy with this strain, this kind of outward activity. If you begin to exercise some kind of a quality control, the mind rebels. When you threaten the outward directed flow of the mind, activity of the mind says, I am here. We're hardly aware of the mind until we mess with it. Only when we threaten the outward directed activity of the mind does the mind say, I am here, I won't let you do it. But that's a challenge, especially for human beings. Animals cannot take it up. To distance ourselves from the mind and do and think in a way that we consider beneficial to us is reserved only for human beings. And that needs the power of discrimination. Exercise of buddhi. That's what makes us conquer internal nature. Swami Vivekananda says, It's grand and good to know the laws that govern the stars and planets. It is infinitely grander and better to know the laws that govern the passions, the feelings, the will of humankind. This conquering of the inner man, understanding the secrets of the subtle workings that are within the human mind, and knowing its wonderful secrets, belong entirely to religion. Swami Vivekananda continues with his definition of religion. First, I said, each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, internal and external. Swamiji continues, do this either by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, by one or more or all of these. Work. It was Swami Vivekananda's genius to have divided humanity into 4 kinds. You belong to any nation. The active type, the emotional type, the contemplative type, and the philosophical type. Swami Vivekananda divided humanity into 4 kinds. And to these 4 kinds are respectively, we have these 4 yogas. The active kind has Karma Yoga, performance of work as spiritual discipline. The emotional kind, Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of devotion. The contemplative kind, the yoga of meditation, Raja Yoga. And the philosophical kind, the yoga of knowledge, Jnana Yoga. So Swamiji says, do this by work, that means by Karma Yoga or worship, Bhakti Yoga or psychic control, Raja Yoga or philosophy, Jnana Yoga, by one or more or all of these. That means every one of these 4 yogas is capable of leading us to the goal, leading us to the manifestation of our true nature. And Swami Vivekananda doesn't want us to content with practicing only one of the 4 yogas. Incidentally, when we say active, emotional, contemplative, and philosophical temperaments, it doesn't mean that these are watertight compartments and a person is only active, some other person is only emotional, someone else is only contemplative, and so on. All these 4 temperaments coexist in the same individual, but one of them predominates over the other 3. So when that happens, we'll find that particular yoga more beneficial to us. But Swami Vivekananda makes it clear. The ideal person is he in whom all the 4 yogas have found equal manifestation. Or all the 4 temperaments serve as instruments to communicate with God, with the divinity in them. So this Karma Yoga, the yoga of work, essentially involves detaching our will from the body, from the mind and the senses by a selfless performance of work, doing it as worship. Bhakti Yoga detaches the will from desire, from objects, by directing it towards God. Sri Ramakrishna had a disciple by name Swami Turiyananda, one of the 16 monastic disciples. He was called Hari when he came to Sri Ramakrishna. Such a brilliant student of non-dualism, such a brilliant student of Sri Shankara, and very pure. He was practicing spiritual disciplines, meditation, even before he came to Sri Ramakrishna. And he was very fond of this idea, I am Brahman. And he lived a life like that. He once went to have a dip in the Ganges and he saw a crocodile just at a distance. And he instinctively began leaving the waters. And then he told himself, I've been saying every day, I am Brahman, I am the Atman. I am not the body. So why should I run? He didn't run. He continued with his bath and the crocodile just turned away. So this person, when he came to Sri Ramakrishna, he underwent training under Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna slightly gave a different turn to his attitude and said, you say, I am Brahman, but I say, I and Mother. So that way you find in Swami Turiyananda's teachings later, this influence of Sri Ramakrishna's teaching. He always said, "Mother, mother." You study his life at Shanti Ashram. Anyway, this boy asked Sri Ramakrishna once how to get rid of lust. Because Sri Ramakrishna's important teaching is lust and gold. These are the two impediments to God realization. Sri Ramakrishna said, "Why do you want to get rid of it, my boy? Increase it." This boy was puzzled. "I'm struggling with this," and Sri Ramakrishna says, "Increase this." And then Sri Ramakrishna continued, "What is lust? The desire to get the highest, not petty things. Desire to get the highest and intensify this desire." That means Bhakti Yoga gives a Godward turn to our natural tendencies and impulses. And Raja Yoga involves mind control. It involves settling the mind on a particular center. And we are taught to meditate on God in the heart center and focusing the mind on the source instead of letting it be attached to the senses and sense organs and sense objects. And Jnana Yoga, the yoga of knowledge, the aspirant has nothing other than the sword of discrimination as a spiritual tool with which to tear the veil of Maya. He continuously keeps denying everything other than the Atman and finally ends up realizing the Atman. Not denying things outside, but denying things, everything beginning from the mind. Denying desires, denying tendencies, not just denying, living accordingly. That means not following every desire arising in the mind, but being detached. So one thing that is common to all these four pathways is discipline. Without mind discipline, there is no headway possible in spiritual life. Swami Vivekananda continues, "This is the whole of religion. Do this by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, by one or more or all of these, and be free. Be free from the bondage of matter, the bondage of the body, bondage of the mind. Be free. This is the whole of religion." Then he continues, "Doctrines are dogmas. Rituals are books. Temples are forms, are but secondary details." Doctrines, dogmas. Every religion has its own share of dogmas, beliefs, theology. And rituals. Every religion has its own set of rituals. And every religion has its own books, scriptures, mythology. The problem is, we think our religion, the mythology of our religion is pure history, and the mythology of other religions is just story. So every religion has its mythology, books, temples, churches, mosques, gurudwaras, synagogues, places of worship, or forms, image worship. These are called secondary details by Swami Vivekananda. What does that mean? The primary aim of religion is to manifest this divinity that is hidden in us. That is the essence of religion. These are secondary details. That means these are non-essentials of religion. Non-essential does not mean not necessary, but that which does not constitute the essence of religion. And the utility of these secondary details has to be judged by their effect on furthering the primary aim of religion, which is manifestation of our divinity. In India, it's a traditional belief that a dip in the Ganges, a bath in the Ganges, a sacred river, is mentally purifying. Sometimes if the Ganges is very clear in Haridwar, Rishikesh, and in some other places, Varanasi, Calcutta, it could be a little muddy. So whether it's physically purifying is debatable. But that it is mentally purifying is a time-honored Hindu belief. So a dip in the Ganges, making pilgrimages, observing fasts, vigils. There are so many different ways of observing religion. All this is true. Swami Vivekananda does not want us to give up anything. Observe all this. But if you don't focus on the primary aim of religion, the essence of religion, which is manifesting our divinity, we can just be bogged down in these secondary details and not make an inch of progress in spiritual life. So what's important, the touchstone of religion is transformation of character. Swami Vivekananda defines religion in a different context as an idea that transforms a brute into a man and a man into a god. Animal nature, human nature, divine nature. These three are intertwined in us. In fact, this divine nature is held captive in most people by the lower nature, the animal nature. As long as that is predominant, the divine nature that doesn't manifest itself. So transformation from animal nature to human nature. Human nature means being more moral, having consideration for others, and trying to focus on, we could say, pursuing truth, goodness, beauty, living for some higher values. That amounts to becoming more and more human. And manifesting our divine nature means manifesting our selfless nature. Swami Vivekananda says there are two things, God and the world. Everything that is selfish is classified under the world. Unselfishness is God himself. That's a brilliant definition, Swami Vivekananda's definition. Unselfishness is God himself. So the more unselfish we are, the more our divine nature has manifested itself. But the fundamental thing is to undergo transformation from animal nature to human nature. According to Hitopadesha, a wonderful small treatise on ethics, there are 4 factors common to human beings and animals: eating, sleeping, fear, and the urge to procreate. These 4 are common. What differentiates a human being from animals? Dharma. Dharma is a distinguishing factor. According to variation, jnana, knowledge, is the distinguishing factor. Dharma has again different shades of meaning. Dharma means morality. Dharma means our true nature. Dharma can also mean our mindset. But what's the primary meaning here is dharma means righteousness, morality. And by implication, it means the power to discriminate between what's moral, what's immoral, what's right, what's wrong. Discriminating between the right and the wrong and living according to the right way is possible only for human beings. This is the only distinguishing factor in human beings. When this is not present, that means when there is no struggle to sift the right from the wrong and live for the right, live the right way, whether the mind wants it or not, this struggle is inevitable in human life. And if the struggle is not present, there is nothing to distinguish human beings from animals. We continue to be, as per the definition, social animals. Man is a social animal. That's a traditional definition for man. That means animals with the capacity to speak. So that's the touchstone of religion, transformation of character. Animal nature to human nature to divine nature. And Swami Vivekananda says, strength is the essence of religion. He says to everyone who says that they're religious, I place this one question before them. Does religion make you strong? Does it make you feel strong? And Swamiji continues, anything that weakens you physically, mentally, morally, spiritually, reject as poison. That kind of rejection is a part of our self-effort. That which doesn't help us abide in God, grow in devotion to God, has to be rejected as poison. So to sum up what we reflected on today, Swami Vivekananda's ideas on religion are as illuminating as they are strengthening. He said, each soul is potentially divine. All of us are divine, but this divinity is right now potential in us. Manifesting it in our thoughts, in our actions, is the goal of life. And this can be done by conquering nature, external and internal. Most important, internal. Because not all scientists who have conquered external nature have conquered their own passions, their own desires. They have their own character aberrations. So conquest of internal nature is more important. Do this by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy. Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga or Jnana Yoga, by one or more or all of these, and be free. This is the whole of religion. That means this is the essence of religion. Doctrines, dogmas, rituals, books, temples, forms are but secondary details. And these secondary details are to be judged by their effect on the primary aim, which is manifestation of our true nature, our divine nature. Thank you very much.
I am very much moved and impressed the beautiful way he analyzed the whole theme. Very good lecture.